Imagine at 17, they accuse you of murder. You and two of your friends, you tell them you weren't there because you were playing video games with your cousin at your aunt's house when this happened. You go to trial. Everything is shaky. You tell them you're not there. They still convict you of murder for believing you was an accessory. If you was there, you had to be part of this. Within a day, within a week, the other person goes to trial. He confesses the shooting. He tells them you weren't there. He tells them who was with him. They acquit him of self-defense. 20 years later, you're still in prison. You're still in prison. I'm still in prison for being accessory to a crime that wasn't even a crime. Nor was I there.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hood Table one more again. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Hey everybody in the chat, make sure you please like and share the video, and also subscribe to the Hood Table if you're not already subscribed. Now, just to let y'all know, a lot of people already know that YouTube has been having some issues with servers. So if you're watching from your cell phone and you're having difficulties, try to watch from your computer, your laptop, your smart TV, your iPad, something like that, because YouTube has been having server issues for like 4 days, but it only affects like people on their cell phones. So just want to let that be known, just in case people are having issues. We do have a special guest with us tonight, and we are going to be discussing a special topic tonight. And our guest is Jason Witmer. Jason J. Renewed Witmer. Welcome to the Hood Table tonight, Jason.
Thanks for having me, Tanya.
You are so welcome. Now, as the title of the show, I'm going to copy and paste it so it's running across the bottom, so people who's coming in can know exactly what we're discussing. There we go. So we're going to be discussing tonight the exploring the story behind one of our Omaha's own Ernest Jackson, who has been locked up for about 20 years. How long?
Going on to 21 this year, I believe.
Almost 21 years. And it's for a crime that they charged him with for a murder. But then come to find out, somebody else accepted the responsibility for the crime and said it was self-defense, and they were let off. And so a lot of people have been fighting for Ernest because they feel like he should have been immediately released because somebody else took the rap for the crime. So a lot of people are kind of confused like me, and a lot of other people like, how could this happen? So that's why I invited Jason onto the show tonight to give us some information regarding this Ernest Jackson movement, so that people can be clearer on what's going on and why the movement is going nationwide right now. So if you will, Jason, please, we can start from like the beginning to, what initially got this story started back in like 99.
Yeah. What got the story started was, of course, the incident that happened. But what really got the story started was the system. And confusing is exactly what it is. Everybody that knows this, it's you just got to hear the story. So we are talking about Ernest Jackson, Omaha native, I believe. I don't know if he was born there, but he lived his childhood there up until the system took the rest of it. Mm-hmm. So I will refer to him sometimes as Ernesto because I know him, and sometimes I lose track of calling people. And most of us know that lived with names, street names, and nicknames. We don't tend to call our friends Ernest and
right.
Jason. They don't even call me Jay Renewed. That's a whole story in itself. Jay or Little Crazy Jay, what they used to call me. But
I get it. I understand.
Yeah, anybody that hears me say Ernesto and they feel like, wait, I thought we was talking about somebody else. I'm talking about Ernest Jackson.
Okay.
So, and also, I wanted to say that in case I get small little details wrong, it's because I'm not a scholar on the case. I first started out getting to know him and learning some of the law, and then I read his case. I was inside, he was inside, and so I was like, oh shit, this is you. Like, dude, this is some shit from a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not a real, this is, how are you in prison, man? Somebody didn't have to come and tell me like I'm an innocent man for me to say this dude don't belong here. And I'm not saying like there's people in there whose behavior changed, they don't belong there. Many. But we're talking about somebody, when you read his case, you're like, how are you in, nobody would serve crime for that. In fact, I'm just gonna say it, nobody but black, but somebody of color is the only, and don't have no money, is the only people that end up in the system. But I'm ahead of myself because I know some people don't know what the case is.
Okay.
So we're talking about Ernest Jackson in 1999. So going on 21 years, I think it was October. Actually, the case happened in August of, I think it's August 31st. And well, August of 1999 in Omaha, Nebraska, north side, shooting death had occurred. Another young man was killed, Larry Perry. And before we even go into this, I'm talking about Ernesto, but that doesn't mean I'm not recognizing that somebody else lost a child, somebody else lost a friend, somebody lost their life. Regardless of whatever their part in this is good. This is a story that goes beyond just what the system's doing, because Ernesto's losing his life. They've been swinging him in a tree for 20 years.
Right.
There'll be a reason why I say that, but at the same time, I want to recognize that somebody else has lost somebody. There's in these street things that we are all involved in some degree or whatnot. People lose family members, even though we tend to see, like those of us that are heavily in the mix, and I was in the mix at one time, we just see the other side, and that's what happens to them. But it's the element, like that was somebody's baby, that was somebody's homeboy, that was somebody's big brother, that was somebody's family, that was somebody that one day they could have been somebody in the community, like, man, I was fucking up, but now I'm here reaching out to these youths in the school or whatever. So Larry Perry lost his life in the shooting. The police started looking for 3 individuals from their information: Shamar Cooper Ryder, Dante Chillis, and I might have the first names wrong, but I believe that it's Dante Chillis, Shamar Cooper Ryder, and Ernest Jackson, who we're speaking about tonight.
Was it Shalimar? Or I think
it is Shalimar, SH, and I can we have links to Ernest Jackson's Court of Appeals. However, you'll get I don't know why, when you hear this case, why there's not much on when you Google up Ernest Jackson. I tell people Google up Ernest Jackson, Omaha, Nebraska, but you can pull up the Court of Appeals. When you appeal a case in the court, they're supposed to publish it, which means it's accessible to the public. And so you can get that and get more dry details, which means I'm not telling you the details. It's this court telling you the details, and they have no interest other than doing what they do. So they're definitely not swayed on the side of trying to make you believe that he's innocent. They're only like, we're just gonna, in fact, they're swayed on the side of confirming why their convictions, because he's been in 20 years. So they made determinations to keep him in.
Yeah.
It's Shalimar. Yeah. Ryder. That's his mama right there. That's Ernest Jackson. Brenda. Sometimes I get confused by the last name, so tell her I'm wrong. But yes, so they get 3. They arrest 3. I think it took like a week to arrest Ernesto because, from my understanding, he was told like, "Hey, they're looking for you," and I'm just gonna go back to those of us that lived in the streets, those of us that lived in the hood, those of us that lived our life in a way where they tell you the police come for any reason. You don't think like, oh, good, are they gonna take care of the bad guys? You think like, I'm about to disappear. August of 1999 is when it happened. And so he went on, he just stayed low. Plus he's 17 years old at this time. 17. So that's the mentality. I think the other young men are like 18, 19, but he's 17. Ernesto's 17. I believe the young man that lost his life was about 17.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So they get these three for Larry Perry's shooting. They get them into custody. And I think one time you should bring up the family so you can hear some more details of what happened between that and trial. But for the purpose of me being here, I'm going to talk about what happened when he got to the trial on point, because that's what I got knowledge on. And so they want to try them together. All three goes into the court and they sit before one jury, and whatever any of the three are part of, it's against the all.
Mm-hmm.
They get acquitted, get found guilty together. First degree murder is the charge. Use of a weapon for killing the young man is the charge. However, Ernest, Ernesto, I'm just gonna say Ernesto. We're talking about Ernest. It's on the back. It's on the bottom. Nesto is he was at his aunt's house. He has a cousin roughly the same age that play video games, and he's told the police repeatedly, never breaking. And we know they break youngsters. You're gonna get a break. Just tell us you was there, even when you weren't there. Never was. There's no testimony, no statements of him saying like, "Oh, I was standing by the car," or "I was standing down the street." He was at his aunt's at the time that happened, playing video games with his cousin. His aunts testified to that. His cousin testified to that. That was, I wasn't there at all. Yes, these are my friends. So right now it's guilt by association. And they're saying all three did this. So yeah. He makes the determination, his lawyer, through him too, and I'm sure through his family, is like, I don't want to go to trial with everybody else because they're my friends, but who knows what they was doing that night.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is the trial. And so what the court does, and his lawyer, and I say his lawyer because his lawyers, when you hear the whole case, even not knowing all the facts, just the knowing that he's saying he's not there, at no time do we want to go first. But they want to try him first. His lawyer tries to subpoena Cooper Ryder, one of the defendants, and their lawyer tells them, no, we're not going to do that. So you know what? Nobody should want to go first.
Right.
And a lawyer should be doing everything in his power to make sure nobody goes first, especially the person that's not having a defense of self-defense. Now, I believe Cooper Ryder said some stuff in the before trial, his own trial. I think there was a statement. I don't have it. I think Brenda can enlighten me. And I do know the information is out there. However, I haven't read that particular stuff, so I'm remiss in that. Okay. But just on the understanding of what happens after Ernest's trial makes you wonder, is that a strong belief of where his position was, Cooper Ryder I'm talking about, that he would do that. So hold that for trial number 2. We're on trial number 1, which is Ernest Jackson. Trial number 1, Ernest Jackson goes up there. He has collaborated testimony or collaborated alibi. I'm at my aunt's. My family can testify to that. My cousin can testify to that. I wasn't there. There's one witness, Fulton. There's not one witness. There's multiple witnesses, but there's one witness that is saying Ernesto was there. One witness didn't know his name, didn't identify him in no photo lineup. However, when it comes to trial time, he's suddenly positive that Ernest Jackson is one of the 3. They named 3 people as shooters. The sister, I believe, was a sort of a witness and a cousin of the victim, of the young man who lost his life. And they came out and they testified, you could not recognize nobody. Like, we've seen figures, we can't recognize none of them. But what one does testify that they recognize is they identify some of the clothing of one of them wearing. And remember, trial number 2 is Cooper Ryder. They identify what Cooper Ryder is identified as wearing as the shooter.
Now, was it nighttime when this happened?
Nighttime. Okay. It was nighttime that this happened. So with that said, this other man, he's still, he's stuck to his guns. However, a lot of his testimony was contradictory. He described hairdo that will later be described as somebody else's. And there's also another matching person that described having hair. He described, he said earlier there was an altercation between the three that are charged, including Ernesto, and said Ernest Jackson pistol whooped him. Pistol whooped the young man, beat him with the pistol on the head. And the autopsy is there's no busted up head. Everybody knows a pistol is a solid object. You don't get hit with a pistol and think you got hit with somebody's fist. You get hit with a pistol, you know you got hit with steel. The only thing the judge in an appeals process says there's a little abrasion under his eye. Now, I can't imagine getting hit in the eye with a pistol and thinking right. My face is going to swell up. But the point of why we're saying this is, you know, there's no support of somebody getting pistol whooped. So there's nobody else saying somebody's getting pistol whooped, including the young man's family members. Also, what was said that's relevant is one of the family members that testified that they couldn't identify people, but they seen people, said they came out, grabbed the pistol out of the young man's hand or his waistband, one or the other, took a pistol from him, the young man that got killed, and handed it to the other person, and then they went and got rid of it. So that happened at Ernesto's trial. So the jury determined nobody can prove that he has a gun, so they acquit him of using the weapon. He's not the shooter.
Okay.
However, the jury decided to determine that we think you was there, and so since we think you was there, you are an accessory to this murder, which is a first-degree charge, which means mandatory minimum of life sentence without parole. 17 years old, and so they find him guilty of first-degree murder on the basis of we believe he was there, and under the accessory charged same as a murder. It's called felony murder. Anybody that doesn't know felony murder means if a felony happens and somebody dies, it don't have to actually be a murder like shooting somebody. Somebody dies, you are charged as if you murdered that person.
Oh, okay.
When I brought up this case and he kicked in the door to rob it, and the old lady had passed away, had a heart attack and died. And they gave him felony murder for the burglary, so it turned it into a murder. This is about 1980. Derek Dixon is his name. In Nebraska. And he got life without parole, and that was like in the 80s, and he's still there. So that's
now
what
they tried to give him life, so he was 17, so they couldn't, right?
You know what they gave him?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the type of system we're working with. So yeah, because that by itself is a statement that there's no redemption. We don't care if you got 80 years left of your life and you're a baby. Because those of us who finally grown up out of our 20s, because our 20s were still a baby, and you're a baby, recognizes that there is value in everybody. Everybody. If you can just be a person that will reach out to them. So the mother took the gun and gave it to the daughter. Oh, you know what? I did not know that was the mother that was the one that took the gun. I thought it was like the cousin. And the daughter is the sister. So yeah, and I understand why she would do that, because, you know, just in the moment, already a terrible thing, and then it's gonna make your baby look worse. So at this point, Ernest Jackson is convicted of first-degree murder. Sentencing will come later on. However, there's no 10 to possible life. It's a mandatory minimum of life without parole. Period. There's nothing less than that he's facing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when he was waiting to be sentenced, did they start interviewing the others, or the trial started for the others?
Yep. So while he's waiting to be sentenced, it's time for Cooper, Ryder, and Chillis to have their trial. And the next person to go to trial, and I don't think it wasn't very long after that. A day, a couple weeks. In fact, I haven't bothered to look to nail down the time, because the case is so extraordinary. It wouldn't matter if it happened 5 years from now.
Right.
But it happened within a tiny span of time because they planned to try them all together. So they was ready to try one after the other. And they already nailed one. They got one little black boy tied up. He's about to go up in that tree. And they're gonna noose him and string him out for a life. Period. Let him die in there. That's what they got for him. Ernest Jackson. That's where he's sitting. So Cooper Ryder's trial comes. Nobody testified in Ernest Jackson's trial because Cooper Ryder, nobody testified as in the other two young men that are charged because both of them face their own charges. You have the right to maintain a defense, which means you have the right not to testify in somebody else's case that you are also facing so that you can put up a defense without them picking whatever they want to pick apart on you. And they chose to maintain that right. And that's something I think we should keep note of, and we can talk about a little bit later. But so Ernest didn't have the testimony of these two afterwards. So Cooper Ryder's trial comes. Oh man, it still amazes me. Cooper Ryder trial comes. And this young man, he's about 18, I think at this time. This young man takes the stand for murder in the first degree. Remember, he's facing murder in the first degree. He's a young black male, and he's from the hood. And he's going to testify. And I know people are thinking like, yeah, he's going to tell them, where he was not there. But he testified that he was there during the shooting. But the point is, he testified he was the shooter. He wasn't just there. He got on the stand in front of a jury of who weren't likely his peers and told them his truth. And I say it was his truth because nobody can convince me in the world that somebody, and even if they could try to convince everybody, that is the biggest gamble. That's your life gambling, that I'm going to go up here. Nobody has a camera. They already convicted one man. And the witness was saying, yeah, he's the shooter. He's the main shooter. That's the guy that killed him. I'm sure Ernest Jackson did it. So he's already convicted. So he knows this. Mm-hmm. He might be his friend, but everybody knows if your friend's done, why not just throw the blame on him? Because in my belief,
that's crazy how that spanned off. If you're right, if somebody already charged for it, why would you even go in and confess? That's really strange.
Well, if I'm going to say I'm there, I'm going to at least throw the blame on him for being a shooter. In our young mind, it's like, dude, I'm not telling on you because they convicted you. So I'm using you, hoping the same. How would you do the same with me? That if I was knocked off like that, you could save me. But
I wonder, was it something deeper, like in a friendship or something, where he felt like I have to say it?
When you rationalize it, like, dude, Ernesto went first. He's done. The jury convicted him. They strung him up. He could be a sacrificial lamb to save my life, but instead, I go there and I tell the jury, I'm the shooter, which to me validates your truth. You put your life out there. When you could throw it on your friend. You could say, I wasn't there. Also, I was down the street. This guy don't know what he's talking about. Whatever defense. Not say nothing. Let your lawyer do the talking and get. But the one thing you wouldn't think, unless there's a video camera saying, look at his face and watching you do the actions that you can't deny, which there was not. You say, I was there. I am the shooter. I know I'm facing first-degree murder, but I'm going to tell you this story anyways.
Right.
And I don't know what the jury is, and I don't know if we can get access to it, but I'm willing to bet it's mostly white.
Probably so.
It always is.
Probably so. I mean, me, if I was in the situation, I'd probably just be like, you got to prove it. But then I was thinking, well, since they're all associated and friends, maybe he just was like, I don't want him to take the fall for something I did. Do you think it was something like that? Or just...
No.
No, not at all? Just...
We talking
I did it.
He can't save him.
Yeah.
He went first. He can't save Ernesto.
See, that's what a lot of people is confused on. Like, if somebody else said they did it, why can't they overturn the charges? That's where a lot of people are.
We'll get to that too. So, but I just wanted to set the stage of understanding. Like, we're talking about testimony, and if he was testifying against somebody in court, this big public opinion where they keep wanting to maintain all these convictions would be like, yeah, that was solid testimony. If he was a witness against Ernest Jackson, like, yeah, my friend just shot him. You know what I mean? They would be like, that's the most solid. That's very solid. That's good evidence. He's seen it. He's a good witness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm just talking about the naysayers, and I haven't heard none yet that would be like, well, this young man he's probably trying to save his friend. He can't save his friend. Well, this young man thinks he's going to use self-defense to get off. Well, he probably believes he's going to use self-defense to get off, but scared to death because everybody in the county, and I remember my time, I went a couple times, but my time I had shot another gang member. He did not die in 95. And I told everybody, and he did, and I don't have to defend myself now because it happened when I did the time, so I can't fix it. But the other man had a gun too. I didn't kill him, but he kept threatening me, and then I shot him. And then I was determined in there, like, dude, I'm going to trial, self-defense. I was 18, 19 then, and all the old timers are like, dude, you're gonna get 100 years because when you lose trial, they use that time, that sentence to try to knock your head off, so that everybody behind you knows you take a plea bargain. We don't care if you're guilty or not.
Back then, in the late 80s, early 90s, they was giving out time, big time, left and right. Anyway, just trying to show a point or prove a point to people from the hood.
They're knocking them down. Nebraska is no joke when it comes.
They ain't.
And they're no joke when it comes to determination of like this does not fit the crime. They still will be like, we just think you might be a problem later on, so we'll just knock you off.
You see Katina's comment?
Say that again.
You see Katina's comment?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. So if you're alleged, so no, because there's different degrees of murder, like second degree murder, and I don't know what it went. At one time it was 10 to life, second degree murder, but I think that moved up to the bottom number. But this a felony murder, which means, like I told you about the Derek Dixon who burglarized and the lady, when they charge you with felony murder, so in that case, nobody stabbed nobody, nobody beat nobody, nobody got shot. She had a heart attack and died. But the felony murder comes with automatic mandatory minimum of life sentence without parole. Whereas you're better off to get drunk and run over some people. Because
now, Carmen Diva said, did Cooper Ryder ever place Ernest at the scene?
No. So, yep, let's go to the trial.
Okay.
Let's talk about Cooper Ryder so we can answer some of them questions.
Okay.
So Cooper Ryder gets on the stand and testifies, I'm the shooter. This is what happened. I was acting in self-defense, which sums up, that element of his testimony without going word for word. However, he's asked questions. One included, your accomplices. Was Ernest Jackson your accomplice? No, I never seen Ernest Jackson there. He wasn't there.
Okay.
But what makes it solid, so this is the part that will answer, actually, I didn't think about this, but now I'm thinking about it. This is the part that answers, was he trying to save Ernest Jackson? No. And I'm going to say that definitively no. And this is why. He identifies a person who is not charged, who is his homeboy, as being present with him. And then he identifies a second man as being a friend of his friend. So in other words, two men, he loses this trial, two more men are about to get indicted because he names them. He might not be thinking like that, but I think what he's thinking is he truly believes like, dude, this was self-defense. There's no way they can, I'm scared because these juries do what they do, but he was like me, this is self-defense. I let all the old timers talk me out of it, and I don't even blame them because I feel the same. You go to trial in this country, it don't matter what your evidence is. The system's made that they can be like, we believe that. Because Ernest Jackson's case is proving it. And your ass is stuck fighting. And if you look at these innocent cases where they prove innocent, these people they're not going like, he spent 2 years and finally got out because he proved it. They're talking about 15, 25 years, 30 years later that they're proving people's innocence. Like what was happening in them decades? In this
they were just trying to lock everybody up.
They're just letting people, dude, that is where evil's happening. Like the terrible stuff that those of us involved in these lifestyles that victimize our community. But evil is a whole nother insidious thing. So Cooper Ryder, he identifies 2 other individuals that are with him because they said there was 3 people. One, including, has the same hairstyle as Ernesto. So he identified people who were not charged and who were his friends. One was his friend, one was his friend's friend. So he's not saving nobody. He's testifying to his truth.
Right.
You know what I mean? And his truth is, I defended myself. And so, also, what else did he testify to? Well, that's all. That don't matter. He said Ernesto wasn't there. He said he was the shooter. I am the shooter. I, Cooper Ryder, am the shooter. This is what I did. It was an act of self-defense. He named 2 other individuals who were present. And the jury heard this evidence of his full testimony. They had all the evidence that they had before them. Rational jury, looking at everything, whatever we want to think about them, but they got to look at everything. And they said, this murder was not a murder because it was an act of self-defense. It's a tragedy, whether they feel that or not. We know it is. It's a tragedy, but it's not a murder. It's not a crime. It's an act of self-defense, so he's acquitted. Because when you act in self-defense, truly, you might have to do something you might not want to do or whatever. You are innocent. Do a criminal act. So that's the end. He's done. Next man goes to trial. Of course, Cooper Ryder has had his he can testify without fear of repercussions for his own statement because he had to defend his life first.
Right.
You want them to do whatever they do. And the next trial, and remember, the next trial, when he testifies to his testimony, it's not the same jury that acquitted him. You don't shift all the same jury to other trials.
Okay.
You know, not that I know of. Somebody can enlighten me if that's happening in Nebraska, because that should be looked at. Yeah. So not that I know of, but all, you know, you pool juries, both sides get to go through their juries and pick. So new trial, new person, same crime getting charged with, because apparently the prosecutor decided, self-defense, we still want to try to get us another one. Because why else would they try somebody after the shooter admitted that he's the shooter? This is what happened. And there could have been 100 shooters, but guess what? When the person that says I shot and killed that man, boy, because he was a young boy, it was all boys. When I shot and killed that young boy, despite my life being online, I'm telling you, I was acting in self-defense. No matter what else was going on in my life that you feel was negative, this act was a self-defense. And they determined there's a self-defense happening. There's no 3 people. Like if all 3 was in some mafia movie shooting him, you don't say, well, that one was innocent of shooting him. And then
they all going down.
All innocent. You're self-defense or you're not self-defense. So pointing at these different angles, which are not part of this case that I know of. So they acquitted Cooper Ryder. They acquit Chillis, the 3rd trial, with Cooper Ryder's testimony, with another jury looking at the same aspect of people. And so Cooper Ryder said he had a jury of his peers.
And Ernest didn't.
Ernest. But the next man had a different jury. So it got, you know.
And then the 3rd person, when he went to trial. When the 3rd person went to trial.
He got acquitted.
And it was the same thing, self-defense?
Well, no, I don't think he did self-defense. And why should he? Because he's not the shooter. I don't even know.
That's true.
The point is, there wasn't no crime to convict him of no more. Because now the juries are being made aware that, hey, how is it possible we are trying somebody for killing somebody when the admitted shooter is getting on the stand? We're not even sitting here speculating and trying to blame this person as a shooter and he defend himself. He told us and is telling us, I am the shooter.
And I feel where he said that Somerville was and some of Somerville's friends were actually at the scene.
Yep, I just wasn't naming them. I don't know what his life like now, and sometimes people don't want to be. And it's not a big secret because it's in the paperwork.
Yeah,
but
it's
I don't know.
public. Yeah.
So I was just not naming somebody because this is already a horrible case. If these, I don't know what these people who run the justice system might pull. Because how do you know? We are just talking about Cooper Ryder's trial and him getting acquitted and the murder not being a murder. Ends all conversation about why is Ernesto in jail?
It don't make sense. There's no reason. There's no reason for him to remain in jail.
No longer a murder. Why is anybody and who would ever go to? Yeah, so David right there, Chillis got off on wrong ID. But guess what? Nobody other two didn't get charged. So Chillis, they just followed through. They obviously didn't care. They was just going to try to get somebody else because you know what?
Yeah, they was just trying to find somebody else.
I'm not saying David said right. You know, Chillis, they acquitted him for wrong ID. Chillis didn't get off. Sometimes and I do the terminology terribly myself. He didn't get off. They made the right decision.
Right.
It sounds like we're saying he got away with something. Ain't nobody got away with nothing except what they did. The people that
the ones who got away was the ones who was self-defense, who pleaded self-defense.
He didn't get away with nothing either. They determined that. You know, people that got away was the prosecutor and the judge and everybody that maintaining this sentence on Ernest Jackson because that's a crime. You let me keep somebody in my basement for 20 years and you tell me I don't have 10,000 years of imprisonment coming. And even if I say, and you know, God forbid it, even if that man, let's say it's a man down the street that touches my little grandson and I keep him in my basement for 20 years, people might be like, yay, but the system will throw me away.
They say Cooper Ryder testified at Chillis' trial and they found acquitted of the charges of mistaken identity.
Because again,
David, what David said would make sense for them, the people who said that was him. If other people said they actually did it, then it was a mistaken identity.
Absolutely. No, David was right. I was just thinking of sometimes we say like we say Cooper Ryder, you know, testified that he shot him and it was an act of self-defense and people be like, yeah, he got off. And it's not thinking of what we're saying, but the people that like to pick at us, they're thinking, yeah, he got off. He got away with it. He didn't get away with it. He told him what he did. And a jury, just like in their jury that's saying that shit, would be like, yeah, just like with the police officers, they're saying them juries and them people are all, they're not saying like he got away with it. They're all like he was self-defense.
Or he had every right to defend himself, or he thought his life was in danger, or But Katina's right. They both are now deceased. Rest in peace. They both are now deceased. I had
this is a tragedy because Cooper Ryder and Chillis, within 5 years, I think it was within 5 years, both in different street.
Different situations.
And so it's also the cycle of the hood cycle that we got going on, the urban cities and just the mentality. And that's something, like I said, I've participated in that and just as guilty as anybody else of spreading that mass destruction in our community and self-destruction and went in prison and was doing the same shit.
Yeah. A lot of us was wilding out back then. It was that hood mentality. And sometimes you outgrow it and sometimes you do outgrow it or it ends up taking you out of here.
And it's taken a lot. And I can tell you this, and I don't doubt this for a moment. You won't find but a handful out of 100 dudes that are in prison for some gang related shooting or in life or whatever that wouldn't give everything back to give that life back to get some of their life back, because all of them will tell you from straight forth is like, dude, we gained nothing from being gangsters. We gained nothing.
And that's why I be laughing at these people around here talking about they in gangs. I'm like, y'all ain't live no gang life. That the real gang members, that was back in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s. Y'all just around here doing a little play. You know, get y'all life together and try to figure out what y'all want to be when y'all really grow up, because it's really sad to have the reason of being in a gang why you don't succeed or why you're dead or why your mother has to send you money every month on your books.
And the real gangsters who don't play as the system.
The police, the biggest gang in the world.
Yeah, they'll all the hardest gangsters. You come ask the hardest gangsters who ain't been in the hole, because when we admit, and I've been in the hole several times. Guess what I was doing? Even when I struggled a little, I allowed them somehow to put me in the hole. How solid of a gangster would we argue on the street if we just said somebody was like, get in the basement? We like, you gonna fight for your life to try to put me in that basement. But guess what they do? Her statement. Okay, David is answering. That's good. Yeah, he did have appeals. He did, have chances. So we're talking about Ernesto. Kind of side subject, but because there's a lot happening in our lives in the hood. But let's get back. That's the point right here. It's Ernest Jackson. He gets life sentence, life without parole. They sentenced him to life without parole. Everybody else went home. And yes, tragedies happen in their lives too, in their family lives.
Now, can I ask, what kind of lawyer did he have? A public pretender?
I believe so.
I'm just wondering.
You already got to handle next to everybody's case,
and
they've been doing it for years. So even the ones with good intentions just feel like they're swarmed and they're just processing through, doing their best, but they're trying to do this, and do. Yep. So
has he ever had like a team of, how sometimes there's a team of maybe even young attorneys or law students who just get together and be like, we think we need to, go through these files and bring this back up?
Because when I went to trial, he was just a young black man saying I wasn't there. And even if we gave the benefit of doubt to the jury, which I'll call the benefit of reasonable doubt to the jury, that they made a proper decision of saying he was there, I would say reasonable doubt means when there's some sort of evidence that's making you say like,
even if it's a little bit.
The purpose of reasonable doubt, and I think it was a Supreme Court or United States Court judge or somebody that said it was like, it's better. I think it might have been another, but it don't matter. The statement was, it's better to let 10 guilty men go free than to send one innocent man to prison.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, Carmel Diva. Thank you. She said Project Innocence. Have they ever been contacted?
They've been reaching out.
Okay.
So that's recently started happening again. Hopefully in the because I can't see the chats on the side of your thing, but the family will state whoever it is, maybe a link to put some links in there that whoever's watching this, that look in them chats with the family, David on there, Brenda, whoever else is on there, put some links that get more.
Yeah, we need to send them this video. We send them your video. The anything that you want us to send or his family, I'm all for supporting this movement. I really am.
So Ernesto went to he got an appeal. He appealed it, of course. And one of the foundations of his appeal is the shooter's testimony. Cooper Ryder. He testified being a shooter and was acquitted. That is crucial evidence. There's no more crucial evidence. Testimony has been ruled to be a Midwest Innocent Project. Didn't take because it was DNA. Yeah.
Okay.
I've known that for a long time. That was known in prison. Is some of these innocent projects only want DNA because it's
really?
That's harder to fight because even the evidence of DNA comes back true or not true. But they don't like the cases where it's murky because it's a big long legal battle. And
see, I never knew that they prefer DNA type cases.
Yep. And this case, unless he fell down while he was running away, somebody fell down and bled on concrete, what DNA is there to have?
Yeah.
As far as the suspects. So this was the confession of the shooter. And that's what I was going to say is when you talk about testimony, okay, David to add links. So them links will connect you to more information. When we're talking about testimony, evidence has shown eyewitness testimony is very faulty. Yeah. But when we're talking about the eyewitness is saying, okay, this is a first degree murder. Well, I did it, but I did it in self-defense. So this is not an eyewitness blaming somebody. This is not a confession of somebody saying somebody else did it, testimony or somebody else did it, that I was hiding and I wasn't there, or this guy did it. This is a person putting all the risk on themselves,
Right.
all of it. And this is all the dice. Because once again, mandatory minimum is life in this case, without parole, which means death by incarceration. You are there until you die. That is the sentence. They call it life without parole, but it's really death by incarceration.
I didn't either, Karma Diva. Jason told me something new today.
Yeah. So, and I think some of that's changing because we have people like, oh man, I don't know why I forgot his name. The Just Mercy guy. Is it Brian? I just watched the thing on him. The dude is awesome. He's down in South, and like in the 70s, he was a young lawyer coming out, and he decided to take death penalty cases, and he got people off of death row because he fought and he fought. He got threatened. They was doing shit, old racist shit to him, you know. Brian Stevens. Somebody can type that up there. Look up Just Mercy guy. And when
I think I know what you're talking about. I'm gonna look that up real quick.
Read his book too, Just Mercy. Watch his movie. The movie came out last year or earlier this year before COVID. Before COVID wrecked everybody's reality.
Okay, it says the lawyer Brian Stevenson, played by the actor Michael B. Jordan.
Who's the other guy that was playing the bad guy in Black Panthers, I believe.
Let me see. Tim, was it Tim? Not Tim Blake.
Not the actor that passed, the brother that passed away that played the Black Panther, but the bad guy, the Black Panther. I believe that was he played Brian Stevenson, who was a lawyer in real life. So this is a real story. He fought what was impossible by the system, made by impossible, and was proven. And they had a case where a guy was at a cookout raising money with dozens of family members, but because they was his family, they're like, we need you, we don't care. And they didn't even beat it by proving these alibis. They didn't care about these alibis, but the guy that testified, this is always questionable when people go in and they don't seem to know everything, and then when it comes trial and after interaction with the detectives, they suddenly are really clear on some things, like who did it. In that case, it was the same thing, but the difference was somebody had recorded it. So you usually don't get that, behind the scenes recording. And somebody recorded when they was pressuring him before they was prepping him for his testimony.
Okay. Tracy says she gave him paperwork recently, so we'll see what happens. I can't believe I haven't seen that movie. I'm about to check that movie out now that you mentioned it too.
Tracy is Ernesto's wife. Yeah, death by incarceration is what it's called. So they turned down Ernesto's appeals on this evidence because newly discovered evidence can get you a retrial. But the testimony of Cooper Ryder newly available, saying like that was available, you didn't get it. And
it seems like that was new information back in '99. Him saying he did it self-defense.
And you know what? Because what essentially they said is they were saying the Cooper Ryder determined how he was going to use it for his own trial. So they just said it. They just basically said, "Oh, if somebody is accused and they want to defend themselves fully and they don't want to come to your trial and testify, exercise that right. That right will be used against you if that testimony is crucial, because this testimony is crucial." But because he didn't want to testify at your thing, we're going to screw you for it. Because that's what they decided. Like, because if this would have been newly discovered evidence, which it was. How they twist the words. He would have. Man. That's what happened in new trial. That they wouldn't have been able to pull. It was not likely they were going to pull this stuff off.
Man, they should have pulled that. Man, they should have pulled the lawyer off. Because I just don't understand how his lawyer allowed that to happen. I really don't. But then again, looking back at the times it was and all the gang activity we was dealing with, and they just trying to rid the street.
Yeah, and this is after 95 when I was in for that shooting the other gang member, assault. That's also when a police officer had gotten shot and killed, and so. When elements like that happen, I'm not saying, I'm not making a statement on police officer getting killed. I'm just making a statement on the mentality that's happening afterwards.
Right.
And they're knocking hoods off. Like South Family was the one that was indicted for doing that, and they was tearing their hood up.
Yep, they sure was.
Would talk like if you came down to my hood and shot somebody and we knew it was you, we just come and do it. And they was using all their powers, and they was indicting them. They was doing all types of, but it falls in the element of all of us. So I'm not justifying our behavior. I'm saying like when the system is acting like we are acting, except with legal powers, this is what happens. Because where is the humanity here when somebody's like, holy shit, this ain't even, where is the law here when you say this ain't even a crime no more? You can't determine that somebody's accessory to a crime, and I'm gonna keep
crime when it's not a crime because it was self-defense.
Person that confessed to doing it gets self-defense. It's not a crime. Where is the part of the system that says we can't maintain this sentence? We ourselves are gonna fix it. He doesn't have to put an appeal in. He doesn't have to do nothing. This is just so blatant that in order to maintain this, we are snakes, because that's what they are.
That's what they are.
To maintain this. And I would like to believe there's ones in there that are like, dude, or maybe even ones that were part of this are like, you know what? I put this in the back of my mind so far back that my conscience could take it. But now that it's out, I want to step forward. Step forward and say, like, I don't know what I was thinking. I really believe this or not, but step forward and try to help put a stop to this.
Yes, and this reminds me, remember I was talking to you earlier about the 5. And I was like, that reminds me of the 5. Years later, when that attorney, that prosecutor, when she heard all this stuff, no voice. Nothing. No apologies, no we overlooked, no nothing.
So that's happening here. So the 5, for people who don't know, was it New York?
Yeah.
5 young men that were accused of raping the lady in the Central Park. Park 5.
The Central Park 5.
DNA, I think DNA proved them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And without that, and I haven't looked that case up in a long time. I haven't read about it. Without that physical evidence, they would just maintain them. They would just maintain that sentence, let them die in prison or whatever sentence they got. Let them get so old and just stole their lives away from them. Mm-hmm. That's what Ernesto's facing right now.
And that's what he's facing, and a lot of other black or brown people.
So his sentence did change. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say, like, this is where you see the lack of human compassion and lack of mercy, the lack of rationality in our system. And that part of what we're facing now is like, would you do this to somebody that looked like your own? Because all the evidence is out now. And what we had is a case called Miller versus Alabama in the state of the United States. Mm-hmm. And it was determined, and Brian Stevenson might even have sat on the lawyer we was talking about. He might even been a part of that. Mm-hmm. So Miller versus Alabama, 2012, if I got it right, determined all juveniles who were sentenced to life without parole under a mandatory sentence, meaning there's no minimum below that, have to be resentenced. So the judge has to have the opportunity to give them a different sentence because they're juveniles. They have their value in their life. So every state that I know of, this went into effect, including Nebraska. It happened in Alabama, that case.
Yeah. And Brenda, you're right. There was another guy, I think, in prison who had ran into the guy who was in prison the longest and confessed that he did it. Yeah. On the Central Park 5. Yeah. She's right. Yeah. I forgot.
So Ernesto gets a chance. Kind of like
this. Has a chance.
No, he gets a chance in 2016 because the University of Alabama says he has to get resentenced.
Okay.
So this
evidence, that was when they gave the 13 and a half.
Yeah, no, I see your face scrunching up because you're thinking like, I know this is a past story, so we already said he's still in prison. So you're sitting there thinking like, wait a minute.
Right.
Resentenced.
Like how he get resentenced if he was
here. Know what everybody in prison was like, bro, you're finally going home, man. Because there wasn't nobody in there talking about, oh, this motherfucker think he's innocent, or you know, you're probably doing a little this or a little that. They was like, dude, whatever your life has been, you deserve to go home. We all know you deserve to go home. Nobody was angry with him. Because you know, we're gonna survive in prison. That's people miss. They think, look, he was behaving badly in prison. This comes out on him. You know, he behaving badly in prison. You're surviving in an environment that the people who are saying that are terrified to be placed in there because prison, you can get murdered in it. We're talking about Nebraska right now. So anybody outside of Nebraska are thinking, 2015, I was in Nebraska. That night, the fucking prison was on fire. They done stabbed and killed a couple of dudes in the unit, which still is unproven. You know, 2 dudes got murdered in that one. Around fire, a couple people got pretty hurt, shot somebody on the yard. We're talking about Nebraska.
I think I remember that. National
Guards out there. The whole prison is surrounded by helicopters, armed troops, ready to snipe and kill anybody. They was in prison taking pop shots at people because people were running out they had caged off yards and they'd run onto the big yard. And the big yard is where everybody else is. But still, every time they run out, there's a strip of property that you're not supposed to be on. And the guards in the towers would take that opportunity to pop at people because if you pop and kill one on that turf, it's fully justified, even though they're escaping into the prison. Because they're running from the yards that were pinned in behind the unit into the big yard where at that time you could walk around it. I remember that because I was down because I moved from my little gangsterism. The brothers invested in me and I moved into revolutionaryism, you know, where I thought like, oh, we ain't gonna eat. They want to feed us rotten food. We ain't gonna eat. And try to convince people we ain't eating, we ain't working. You know, I was doing all that shit. And when I didn't even know this was gonna pop off. And then I was like, dude, I spent all this. So I did 17 and a half on this last one. Like I spent all this time trying to raise hell, finally calming down, realizing just raising hell is not part of the solution. I got to be more intentional about what I'm about. And I got under the camera. Yeah, it was Tecumseh.
Yeah.
I got under the camera because they like to blame me for stuff that I wasn't involved in. And then they also blame me for stuff that I was because, you know, in the system, they'd rather you be a little gangster tearing it up than be somebody that's trying to organize people to be like, oh, if they want to feed us rotten chicken and wash it up and cook it, because they've done that. I don't know what they're doing lately. It's gotten pretty bad, but nobody's eating, and that affects the system.
I hear the food just keeps getting more and more horrible.
Well, the whole prison is on like almost in the whole status on lockdown. But my point being is we all knew Ernesto was going home because nobody's going to do the wrong thing here. There is no more argument here. You got time out of him if that's what you wanted. There's no more justifying this. And what happens? He goes to trial. I mean, he goes to resentencing, 2016. And somebody posted, if I get the date wrong, 2016. He goes to resentencing, and I believe there's a news story. I know there's a news story where that news covered because they was covering it before. Because I believe they knew he's going home. The shooter confessed. We talked about this. We've been talking.
Yeah, that was in January 2016.
Yep. And what did the judge do? And the prosecutor argued that it's not about this testimony, which is freaking the most crucial testimony you ever would hear in a case. In any case, is the person coming forward. It's not about this testimony that it's not about the person saying I shot somebody and the jury determining that this is not a crime. It's self-defense, which means you could literally say, let's take Ernesto and switch places with Cooper Ryder. And instead of being the young man that goes first and says he was at home and getting life, he can be the young man that tells the jury, I was the shooter. I apologize, but I was the shooter and this is what I did, but I acted in self-defense. Guess where he'd be? At home. He'd probably be a school teacher or a mechanic. Who cares?
Right. And for those listening in, it was in October 2015 that the court issued an order vacating Jackson's life sentence.
I think he got resentenced in 2016.
Yeah. Well, no, I meant in 2015 in October was when they ordered his other sentence to be vacated. And then they scheduled a new sentencing hearing for January 2016. That's just crazy how they was like, okay, we're gonna vacate this one. I'm trying to understand where did the resentencing come from?
From the Alabama Miller versus Alabama when the United States courts determined that
So,
no juvenile
okay.
can be sentenced to life without parole, mandatory
Okay.
life without parole. You can
Okay,
get
and because of the fact that he was 17 and 10 months old and not
Yep.
yet 18 yet, that's the reason why they re-sentenced.
because he was still considered a juvenile, and in Nebraska, 18 years old, where you lose your juvenile status.
And the messed up part is when they re-sentenced him, they gave him 60 to 80 years, but then gave him like 6,000 days of good time.
Yeah.
That equals 13 and a half more years.
60 to 80 years. That was their determination of justice in this case. They argue, I believe prosecutor argued. So you can't tell me prosecutor comes in this case not aware of everybody else got acquitted and why Cooper Ryder got acquitted. She knew. I believe her name was Katie Benson.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew that information, and she argued that that did not matter. The information that the shooter testified and was acquitted of self-defense did not matter for the young man sitting in their court with a life sentence that just got vacated because a court determined, United States court determined, this is unconscionable that we would mandatory give life sentences. But they didn't, but our people, our Nebraska people, seem to not think it was unconscionable that we would maintain a prison sentence for somebody being accessory to a self-defense.
It sounds like they never wanted him out in the first place. Like when they re-sentenced him to 60, 80, like he already did 20. We already heard that somebody else did it. That person was let off for self-defense. So even after 20 years, when he's re-sentenced, they couldn't be like, okay, let's look at the facts. Somebody else, accept the blame for this crime. They got off. This man should be going home. Why is we still trying to get him life? Like as if they're saying, okay, we couldn't give you life then, but we're gonna give it to you now. That's how I'm looking at it.
And somebody feel free to post the quote of the judge. One of the statements the judge that he made that showed a mentality, in my belief, a deep mentality of how disposable we are. In this particular case, Ernesto is that judge said, and I'm gonna paraphrase because I don't got the quote, but somebody will put it up. He said, so you said it, Ernest was 17 years old, 10 months. That judge said, but for 2 months, that's how old he was when he got sentenced as a juvenile. But for 2 months, we wouldn't even be here. Essentially, he's saying, like, if you was 18, I wouldn't have to worry about you. You would be done.
Right.
With this case and this evidence, we don't have a judge that'd be like, thank God this happened because I would have never heard of this case and I can't give you your life back, but I can make sure today I'm going to give you what you got left back. Where is that person in our system?
They're supposed to be Nebraska, the good life.
They're supposed to be the person that says, I don't care what damn color your skin is. I don't care if you like Donald Trump or Ben Laden or whoever. I don't care if you're a Republican, Democrat. I don't care what your mama done, your daddy done. I don't care what you done before this crime, and I don't care what you done in prison as long as it doesn't involve murder or raping somebody else. You're going home because I'm not going to be a man or a woman that would do this, be a part of this again. And he said, no, somebody died and you need to be punished.
That's basically what the judge was saying. Somebody got to be punished, but it's like, okay, the people that should have been punished, they let them off. And now they're not even no longer here. So they still want to punish. Okay, I don't want to get like on the family of the person who died, but do you know like how they feel about this? Like, have they been? I haven't
been in touch with them. I would ask through your media. I would ask this. So number one is yes. So first of all, disclosure is I am Ernesto Jackson's friend, Ernest Jackson's friend. Mm-hmm. So as a friend, I would go to bat for him. However, I could have been his enemy, and I would argue this case the same way because the facts of this case are no different.
Yeah.
But with that being said, and I've said it before, is in my growth, I've recognized, how my behavior, not just how it's hurt me and my family, but how it's hurt other people, how it's hurt the community, how it's helped the stereotype that's been crushing us. Every time protesters was out trying to do the right thing, they're using the stereotype of look at all of them. And I helped push that stereotype in my behavior in the past, how that's harmed people. Larry Perry's death, there's no justice happening here. His family's hurting because, you know, they know what the street life's like. So, you know, stuff happened when it happened at the time, how to get rid of the gun. But that don't mean he deserved death.
Right.
That don't mean that he wasn't a child that could have been a man that was better, because we all grow. Even the worst of us grow. Even the people, I am here better than I was, not because I am a great person, but because dudes doing life in 100 years and whatnot became great men in there by rebelling, by educating themselves. And once you start growing a conscience and growing your humanity and recognizing that, there's a power in you that says, like, you got to do something to give back. It don't have to be huge. And them brothers were kept just fucking with guys like me. And I mean, I was a nightmare. When I got sentenced again, because I went back, I got out 3 months, went back, I destroyed the county. I went back here in Lincoln. I destroyed the county jail with the bars, assaulted the staff. They had to strap me down. They brought 2 teams in. I went in, I barricaded the dorm, jumped up. It was just one thing. It was just, and they was calling me Little Crazy Jay because I was just like off my rock. Even now, I can't explain it. All I know, all I can justify it is like, when people say they don't care about their life, I didn't care about my life. The only thing that saves my life then is I thought it was cowardice to take my own life. So I was pressing everybody else. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And if you ain't going to do it, I'm going to be freaking off my rocker doing whatever I want. And I'd spit on people and I'd hit people with objects when I got into it with them. And just, it was off the rocker. And these men constantly were working hard to invest in me, throwing me a book. Check this out. We see you reading, because I went through foster homes when I was young and I learned to read. Check this out, you know, and they play with my ego. You can't even read that book. You'd read that freaking white boy fantasy book. So I was like, man. But it got to me because also age was coming. And then I had a daughter and I got just enough visits to see, like, dude, what if she imitated me? It would be, you know, I can imagine my son, that'd be quicker for him. But also, what is this reputation I'm maintaining? Is that my daughter gonna be like, yeah, my dad's a crazy gangster, and he just spits on people when they're making mad, and Darren assault them, and if they do get in a fight, he'll come back and beat them with something.
And sometimes things happen to us for a reason. Like when you kept going back, and then those old heads was like, this ain't, you ain't about to keep coming back here, you know. So it was meant for you to be in that particular in jail at that particular time, because if you had still been out on the streets, who knows?
And the worst thing could have happened to me if I was on the streets is if I could have killed somebody else instead of somebody just killing me.
Yeah.
And I could have came to my conscience like they did and have to sit there and hold that in myself.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Whew. So even though we talking about, you know, your friend Ernest Jackson and the Free Ernest Jackson movement, you still have a testimony in that too. I like the fact how that's your friend. You've been there, you know, riding with him for a long time. A lot of people aren't built that way, you know, like people go to jail. We know they shouldn't be there, but a lot of people, you know, they don't persevere. Yeah. And try to fight for those who can't fight for that for themselves. So I'm glad to see that you and his family and his friends are still fighting for him, because it's hard to fight for yourself when you're locked up. It's really hard to fight for yourself. So it's hard to get phone time. It's hard to get letters out. It's hard to talk to lawyers, and you know. So I truly hope that he will be released soon.
Yeah. And I did want to say, and I got really sidetracked because I do that. Like his family, the Larry Perry family. I think it's Lance is his legal name, but everybody was calling him Larry, and they even have it in documents. Is like nobody's missing like the pain that they must be going through.
Yeah.
Nobody's undermining or like belittling that by, you know, and it might sound that way because we're trying to save Ernesto's what we can save of his life. Every year matters.
Yeah, you're not trying to say that their family member does not matter, or that life not being here anymore does not matter.
Yep. And I would love it if they would reach out. I would, just to talk, just to express their, hurt. If they want to throw some verbal blows and feel good about it, maybe that makes you feel like I will take that.
Yeah. We don't do that a lot either in the community. When something happens to one family and another person might get dead or in jail, it's like it's not like they steadily go to war or anything like that. They just kind of like don't discuss it, don't face it. But sometimes I think in the bigger picture, sometimes when people have families that's going through certain things, both sides are hurt, nobody wins. It might take things like coming together and speaking out to other people, to the youth. When we see two families come together,
Yeah.
Regardless if they believe that Ernest should be released or not.
Well,
When two families are destroyed, sometimes, it has to take somebody to step up from each family and say, can we discuss this? We still deal with a lot of crime and a lot of murder, right now. Not like it used to be. The gangs ain't nothing like they used to be. But still, for us to have a city the size that we are, we have too much violence when it comes to the hood. But nobody likes to speak up a lot, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I don't know why. People just scared to reach out. Like, what happened to community?
That's kind of what I feel like I'm out here fighting for. Because yeah, we have community, but when it comes to these really hard things,
Yeah.
A lot of times, like you said, and that's something else I would like to say to Larry Perry family. And this might, and nothing I'm saying, I think I'm gonna just heal them or
Yeah.
service. But I want to say something about Ernesto to his family. Is like, so Ernesto went in and he was like the rest of us. He probably wasn't as bad as I was, but he was still bad enough because he's 17, 18, going in prison where all his little gangsters are. And that's what I was about to say is Ernesto, it might have took some years. It took some years for me, but he wasn't far behind me. And he was young, and he's younger than me. He started educating himself, and he's kind of like me in the steps, is where I didn't have like when they would finally convert me, I didn't, one day Jason's reading all these educational books and preaching to the brothers. I was backsliding in this and, reading this book and this. And then sometimes I'm arguing with guys like, man, but it evolves with you until you can find that part where it's the ego in there, the ego and the desperation in there that usually keeps us in all the and when I say negative behavior, I'm not defining it like the system. They're like, these guys are selling soups or running a poker table. Look how bad they are. People are surviving. We're talking about when we're still doing the same gangbang crap that put us there and put all our homies there, that we sometimes put some people there by our behavior, pulled in the homies and they go to jail. But the ego and the desperation is where you're trying to keep that rep, because what else do you have?
Right.
These people just gave me 100 years. What am I supposed to do? Be good now? Mm-hmm. For them? I don't have nothing. I got to hold on to this mentality because now this is all I have. And that's the desperation, is because when you get conscious, you start getting conscious about the stuff you did. You're like, damn, it's killing, the only thing I got to hold on, because I can't justify how, I'm looking at my youth and I'm like, geez, what was wrong with me? Why did I just, there's a lot of elements of what was wrong with us and what happened and why we got into that. But the whole point is Ernesto resisted that in the end. And Ernesto is not just somebody that has an extraordinary case that he's suddenly behaving like, dude, maybe people will listen for once. Maybe I can have some hope when I feel like 20 years it's hopeless. Instead, which is Ernesto right there, graduating. That is really a picture of him every day. I went in there, I worked for organizations and I got to go in there. They let me go into the prison to a Harambe organization, culture club for African Americans, but it's open to everybody. And I knew I've seen Ernesto grow and educate and talk about stuff, but I didn't see this Ernesto. He was the one like pulling shit together and like, hey man, stepping up to the mic, and I'm like, oh, he was the one that got educated before I left, and was kind of on doing stuff, but was still cool and had his swag and wasn't really worried about proving himself that I wasn't doing this or that. So he was still kind of like, he wasn't straddling the fence, but he still had his foot up there where guys were like, we still know the old Ernest though.
Mm-hmm.
Now I went in there and he's the one where they're looking at like, oh, here's this brother, man, on some.
He done graduated and got some knowledge, got some, man.
And is investing back into the men who are coming back to your community sooner or later.
Yep, he invested in himself in there instead of just pining away, just sitting the time out, riding it out. Mm-hmm.
In a situation where I would probably have been a freaking monster because I was a monster and I was guilty. And I was a monster anyways, thinking that all my trauma and all my past, I just abuse everybody else with it until you do something. Mm-hmm. And then he's sitting there for what? Like I can't. And instead of just raging on like that boy deserved it or this system did me this, he got caught up in, living his youth life, but I never heard about him saying nothing bad about what happened other than just to say like, dude, I was playing video games. I was just at home. Like, I get it. We all lived the hood life and they associated me there, but this is something I wasn't a part of.
I mean, even the people who said they did it didn't even say he wasn't there. Even his aunt and other people testified that he wasn't there. He was playing video games at home. This is one of the saddest jail or prison stories that I've ever heard of. And that's why when I first started hearing about it, I was like, we need to make sure that we are promoting this cause, because I truly think this is not one of those cases where, for me, where somebody's just in there, I didn't do it. You know how a lot of people, they put on their Facebook, free such and such, free such and such. And some of them done some stuff to deserve to be in there. But in this case, it's different for me. So that's why I said I need to have this brought about on the hood table so that, people can hear about this. Like they said, this needs to go nationwide. I'm glad to see it on the news. I hope to see it one day go to the highest level of the courts possible, because I don't know about our governor.
Yeah, so let's put that out there for everybody who don't. Right now, he has a recourse. There isn't, so the appeals process and whatnot, just a fight that could go on and on and on. But he has a recourse out. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it's our governor. It's the governor. It's the Pardons Board of Nebraska. And somewhere I have this. So the Pardons Board consists of 3 people: Governor Pete Ricketts, Nebraska's Attorney General Douglas Peterson, and Nebraska State Secretary of State Robert Ebnin, if I say it right. And people can go and punch up Nebraska Pardon Board. They can say, we're going to have an executive meeting. Like, they can literally say, like, this, have you seen this? Like, my faith in, I think Ricketts is a Christian. Would not that faith drive him to say, like, this, okay, I can't maintain this? I think whether or not he's a Christian, that he believes in being a human being, would that not drive him in this particular case to do something? And he also believes that he's a great leader. Would that not drive him in this particular case to do something? Because no matter what some other people may say, this is not a case of speculation of that murkiness that exists.
Yeah, was he there? Was he not there? Did he do it? It's not none of that.
Because there's 2 things here. One, he said he wasn't there. He wasn't there. He wasn't there. He wasn't there. That's an innocent man. But you don't want to do that? Put him right next to Cooper Ryder, who stated he was the shooter. Cooper Ryder said, I, Cooper Ryder, am the shooter. When I say he stated, I, Cooper Ryder, I'm the shooter, and was acquitted of self-defense. There's no accessory to self-defense because there's no crime. But let's go one farther. So he's still innocent as accessory. But let's go one farther again. Let's say Cooper Ryder didn't exist, but Ernesto Jackson was Cooper Ryder, saying, I am the shooter. I was defending myself. And we know what happened. It was a self-defense case.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you maintaining an accessory here? Because he was not the shooter. He was not standing next to the man or anywhere near the man, the shooter. That night he was at home. Why is this a battle for his life? Why are we battling for Ernesto's life? There's a lot of lives we can battle for. There's a lot of things I think we all think needs to be changed. But this one should only be a battle of, I did not know this. That's it. That's all that should be happening here. I did not know this. A paralegal or intern, go pull this information up to see if these people are just talking trash, just kind of spinning their facts, or do we have somebody in prison for accessory to a murder that the person that confessed the shooting was acquitted of? Because I'm going to do something about that, because I'm a good man. I'm a good person. I'm a good human being who would never lynch people, because that's what's happened to Ernesto. And I said it before.
Yeah.
You know what a lynching was in the day? Think you're guilty.
Yep.
They don't just think you're guilty. They think you need to be punished. So they will kick you out.
You don't have to be guilty. They can know you're innocent.
And that's what they're doing here. They're just civilized lynching, because if they put them in the system, everybody thinks, he's still alive.
Yeah.
He can eat donuts in there or whatever they think. He can watch TV. None of them volunteering their life to go sit in prison because somebody thinks, we need to do something. And it's not just us. This is not a chant here. This is a life. Ernest Jackson. Free Ernest Jackson is not a chant. It's a person. It's a husband. He's been helping raise a stepson. He has his own child. His mom, Brenda's on here. This is like George Floyd. Remember where he called for his mama?
That was heartbreaking to hear.
That's what's happening. But it's not just him calling for his mama. Now we're talking about somebody's mama calling for their son that they know we could save.
Mm-hmm. Well, if Pete Ricketts has a heart at all, if he's truly the Christian that he is, if he's truly the leader that he is, he needs to prove it. This would be the perfect opportunity.
This is something we should all come behind, because there's much going on in this country and there's much that we should be behind. However, as Nebraskans, and then hopefully the nation that extends out, that this is a case that we can pick up and we can exemplify of. This is the time, like, if we push this so far and we all speak on this, we all put this to the forefront, celebrities, everybody, leaders, for a leader to say like, you are now determining what type of person you are, because this is not a case where we talked over and over. This is not a case where we can justify in any way for this sentence.
Right.
Since there is an avenue out, you cannot justify. There's no procedural way, like we can't do it because of policy, because of procedure, because of law. It's there.
Yeah, you're right. Community members.
Everybody should be speaking. This is beyond politics. And I'm just gonna say it. Like, if you can know about this and justify it, you should be condemned.
Mm-hmm.
People should say, like, what if our first statement should not be like, he's one of theirs, or I don't care. It should say, if you put your son in his place and you was a person that believed in law and order, and you put your son in his place, saying like, if my son did this, as horrible as it be, I'd even deserve to be in prison. But if your son was in Ernesto's place, Ernest Jackson's place, you would want the world to be on fire before they be allowed to do this.
Thank you.
This is nothing but the worst of the worst of the worst of the system that we have today. Civilized lynching is what's happening.
Yeah, and he needs as much support as he can get. I know his family, his mother, his wife, you, and members of the community are fighting for him, but we need people out, like Mama Diva said. People need to start flooding the senators, the parole board, making phone calls. We need to demand his freedom. And that's basically what y'all been doing, protesting, having different events and meetings, and
trying to put it together so that we can come together.
Yeah.
Community happens.
Yeah.
Because if somebody knows Larry Perry's family is close by him, you know, I can tell you his mom would say, like, man, go give that family a hug for me, because they may not want it from me.
Yeah.
Give that to me, because community means, like, man, we don't have to be on the same page to be in the same book.
Exactly.
And
but what's right is right,
son too.
and what's wrong is wrong. What's right is right, and what's wrong is wrong. And that's the thing. That's the bottom line here, that we have to fight for our rights, because it could be your nephew next, your grandson next, your father next. You know, somebody else saying they murder somebody, but your relative, your friend, serving the time for life. So yeah, free Ernest Jackson. That's the hashtag. Everybody, when you share this video, if you every time you want to promote the movement, that's the hashtag that they want people to use. Try to use that one exactly.
Free,
you know, to not confuse people. Hashtag free Ernest Jackson. That's the ones that they've been, petitioning for people to use. So on your Facebook, your IG, your Twitter, share the story.
and
Share
the Facebook.
Links. I'm gonna put links, and Jason can send me links as well, and I'm gonna tag it. I'll put it in the description box of this video, but I'm gonna put links to the state of Nebraska website that explains the whole trial. I'll put links to news stations, all that in the description box. So whenever you want to share the video, people will have all that information in there. And when they share the video, when you share the video, make sure you put hashtag free Ernest Jackson.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. And is there any last minute things you want to say regarding
I just want to say is join, like, Facebook, join whatever, because the Jackson family don't just want to get their son out. They want to develop a community. Like this, we don't just come together to get Ernesto out. We also come together and start to get to know each other's stories and what each other are going through, because the movement won't stop with Ernesto. It's not just men in prison. It could be, whatever you're being oppressed for, whatever's happened in life, and it could just be making a new friend or whatever. Family's awesome.
Yep, and I'm about to put this other link in here too. It's the free Ernest Jackson Facebook page.
Yep.
I just put that link in there if y'all want to follow and support that and share that. Also, they post the information on there whenever they have a meetings, protests, or anything like that. They post that on that Facebook page called Free Ernest Jackson. So make sure you guys hit on their link, and I'll put more links in the description box.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for that.
No problem. Thank you so much for coming on and helping us explore the story behind this case. It don't make sense to a lot of people, and I'm hoping that eventually our governor will realize it don't make sense as well to keep them in there.
So next year we can have Ernesto Jackson sitting right here in my seat talking to you.
Exactly.
Exactly. Last year is, but what he's doing now to make everything better. And I
know just from hearing your stories and hearing the stories from other people and what I've been reading, that he might be in the wrong place, but he's not the wrong person. When he gets out, I know that he's going to be active in his community and his family, rallying for others just like him, because that's the thing. When you help one, you have to give that back and help another. So I can definitely see him doing that and speaking up for people's rights. I can definitely see that. And we need more people out there doing that. You're welcome, Miss Brenda. You are so welcome. And you can hit me up anytime if you ever need anything. If you ever need me to promote where you guys will be rallying or meetings or anything, you can feel free to hit me up anytime.
You will be getting hit up. There's a barbecue coming up. I think everybody should be at, and I'm thinking about bringing a camera and maybe getting testimony of how people feel about this.
Well, I'll send it to me. I'll post it in our The Hood Table Facebook group. I'll post it on our page, our Twitter, IG. I'll promote it for you. Yes, pay it forward, Brenda. That's right, Miss Brenda. All right, everybody. That's the end of our discussion tonight. I truly, truly thank everybody for tuning in. I truly thank Jason for coming on the show tonight in support of his friend. And also, you guys, remember, share this live out, free Ernest Jackson hashtags. Get involved in this, because this is one of those cases where we just can't turn a blind eye to. We cannot. Somebody deserves to be free and it needs to be done immediately. And with that said, make sure you share and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and in the meantime and in between time, stay safe, be blessed, and we out. Deuces. Good night.